What's up, everybody? It's Josh coming at you from Nerd Ventures Tower. Let's talk about Reva in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. The character of Reva has been a hot button point of contention among the Star Wars fans since leaks came out about what kind of a role she was going to have in the show specifically. There were a whole bunch of people, including myself, that after reading the leaks were upset that a brand new character would be given such a story in an Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Then along the way, Moses Ingram encountered horrible racist harassment from a very small section of Star Wars fans. And many people came to the defense of Moses in that situation, but then there seemed to be this overreach where it became faux pas to say that you weren't connecting with the Reva character or to say that you didn't think this character was handled well in the show. There were some weird false equivalents made from criticizing the Reva character and somehow condoning or participating in the horrible harassment that took place from a small fringe group. But what I want to do in this video is really dig into why I think the character of Reva was handled so poorly in the Kenobi show. Because, you know, in some of the discussions I've seen online and Twitter, some people are like, I just don't get it. Like, I've not heard someone actually break down why they didn't like the Reva character or why they didn't think she was handled well in the show. And so I want to do that. I want to really dig in and give a fair shake here. So let's sort of begin with this concept of, like, you know, forced representation, because I know this is a big thing out there and a lot of different folks are talking about it. I want to frame this with a singular question here. Let me just ask you, and you let me know in the comments section. Do you think it is possible that Lucasfilm created the character of Reva specifically to be cast for the sake, at least partially, of representation? Do you think in the writing process they did not know what kind of a person was going to be Reva? Were there many different options, including maybe alien, for that character? Or do you think specifically they said they wanted somebody from a diverse class or race? Or do you think it's possible that they literally wanted this character to be a person of color or somebody who is a minority? And the truth is, we don't know, right? We don't know if that was the case. And it's possible that that was absolutely what they wanted to do, and that the casting sheet went out and they just wanted a black female or a female person of color to go out for the role of Reva. And so in that sense, it is possible that Lucasfilm created this character and wanted this character to be somebody that was diverse, and that they wanted this because they feel that diversity is really important in Star Wars. But here's the wild thing about that. It's that even if that is the case, it doesn't inherently mean that the character is going to be bad, and it doesn't mean that audiences wouldn't come to love or connect with such a character. Like, I get into this argument all of the time because I know a lot of people like to say, like, you know, get woke, go broke, and those sort of things. And I've just always thought that was way too simplified, you know, way too reductionist and kind of low-hanging fruit, right? It'll get you the clicks, it'll get people upset, but the true story of this is usually far more complicated. And frankly, what I want to say here is that it is irrelevant to the execution of this character how or why this character became a person of color. And I think there are pretty objective reasons why the character of Reva was not given full justice in this show and was poorly written. A big part of this has to do with the difference between plot and narrative. And I want to say something that some of you guys will be maybe surprised to hear me say, but I actually think the plot for the character of Reva is interesting. Like, at the end of the day, the plot for this character is a youngling that was present at the Jedi Temple when Anakin Skywalker came in as Darth Vader and slaughtered the temple. She somehow survives, and then at some point joins up with the Inquisitors, going to the dark side and using her Force potential to rise up the ranks of the Inquisitors and in the Empire. This is ultimately done to win the favor of Darth Vader, but it is because she actually wants to destroy Vader, not to impress him, not to join with him, but essentially to destroy him for vengeance sake. And that kind of a plot is really cool. That's an interesting character arc. Those are interesting motivations. And just as a writer myself, I can see all kinds of scenarios in which you could put a character like that into really interesting conflicts, have them come out on the other side, partially changed, or perhaps reinvestigating the merits of their own self journey. There's a lot of juice in a plot for a character like Reva. The problem is the way it is executed in the show, which is also known as the narrative, was really bad. I think the writers of the Kenobi show make all kinds of basic errors while handling this character arc. First of all, they do really weird things in changing characters around her in order to have her plot come front and center. At the beginning of the show, they're all hunting Jedi, but we see that Reva is very hell-bent on finding other Jedi and finding Kenobi. That's specifically something that is mentioned there, but the way we learn this is by her doing these brutal things that to me seem like they would fall in line with how Inquisitors would conduct themselves, and yet other characters that I'm familiar with from other material seemingly totally change and become more passive, more level-headed, and less aggressive just to let her motivations shine through. It ends up feeling really inorganic. All of these other characters changing around her. And then when she actually killed the Grand Inquisitor to take his position, well, it doesn't feel earned or satisfying because we've spent so little time with this brand new character. Her motivations are a mystery, and the character that she's stabbing and overpowering does not even represent the character we know that person to be from other material. On top of that, they make the classic let's write a strong woman by not having her come into much conflict or have to struggle trope. Reva just walks through this plot knowing things that other characters do not, being more able than other characters that again are established to be pretty good at what they do. I mean, for most of the show with Reva, her motivations are shrouded in mystery, and she seems to be able to do anything. Nothing really stands in her way. She can read minds when she needs to. She can understand secrets that other characters have hidden, find pathways seemingly hidden with very little effort. She literally does any and everything that she needs to do to get to pre-established plot points, and she never has much struggle, and other characters react to her in weird ways that don't seem in line with the characters we know, like Vader being really angry and then just letting her go. It's really a trifecta of horrible writing where you're clouding all of these things, like keeping it so a mystery that there's no actual progression or engagement with the character via the narrative of the show. There's very little struggle, and she seems to just be able to do anything to get to, again, pre-established plot points. And other characters do uncharacteristic things, seemingly because of her plot armor. It leaves the whole thing feeling really unearned and inorganic. On top of that, when we do finally learn her motivations and the truth about her, which again is actually kind of interesting, like that's interesting plot, we learn it narratively through a conversation with Kenobi through a metal plate. And you do get some flashbacks and some sort of interesting dressings there to visually drive these points home, but it happens in a singular episode after she's done a whole bunch of other stuff. It becomes just a big info drop that makes us just go, so that's what she's about, as opposed to having different interesting moments throughout a story that engage us in the possibilities of what is going on with her. It's like literally 101 writing. Like they call this signposting, which is literally giving the reader something to see the progression of a character over time. And you don't get that with Reva. You just get it all as a big info dump in the same episode where she attempts to then take on Vader. And then maybe one of the worst mistakes that the show makes is having Reva arrive at a place as a character where she knows a big secret out there in the Star Wars canon, and she arrives on Tatooine to kill Luke Skywalker for vengeance for what Vader did. But the problem with this scene is that it has zero stakes. We know how Luke Skywalker is going to make it out. We know what's going to happen with Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. We know that Obi-Wan can't be maimed or killed. And so it's literally just us walking through the motions where she's important because she knows a thing. She's going to brush up against canon, but ultimately there are zero stakes in her scenes. So again, the execution of such a character that does have an interesting plot and backstory was just mind-numbingly bad. And to take it back to this whole like forced diversity angle, right? Again, this could absolutely be the case. It could have been mandated or whatever, but if it had been executed incredibly well, and a lot of fans were like, whoa, that's really freaking cool, it would have been a big win for the character and for the idea of diversity. You know, I've been really digging into this a lot, thinking a lot about this lately. I've recently watched a really interesting Grace Randolph video where she talks about how Hollywood is always progressive. It's always been progressive and pushed these kind of ideas. But the most successful versions of doing this are when it connects with a wide audience, where it doesn't seem preachy and it seems like something that can be digestible no matter what your political leaning is. And frankly, that takes work, hard work to do something like this. And I just get this feeling that Disney and Lucasfilm are doing progressive characters and trying to do representation, but then not actually backing it up with the hard work that it would take to craft a good narrative for such characters to have them endured to the most people possible. Instead, they just want to do a character like this and tell you if you don't like the character, perhaps it's for some really bad reasons. And frankly, I think Moses Ingram did a great job with her performance. I think the plots and the ideas around the backstory of this character are interesting. And I think that had this character been given their own show, or perhaps had the Kenobi show been long enough for them to do some signposting and just some basic 101 good writing with the character of Reva, we would be looking at a totally different outcome. But as it stands, it feels like a really hollow gesture, at least to me and many other folks out there. I think we as Star Wars fans deserve better. I think Moses Ingram deserves better. I think all kinds of people that want to see people more like them represented in film and television, I think they deserve better. I think Hollywood deserves to be held to account, and they must do the work. If they want to do these things, there is a way to do them, even if it's mandated, that could be successful. It just takes work. So those are my thoughts on Reva. I'm sure you've got some thoughts about Reva. Let me know what you think in the comments section below.